go. Are you ready? I'm ready. It's been a really great night. For sure. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to provide a really quick roadmap. We're going to finish up game 1 between Euthermal and Soxry, and then we're going to take a look at game number 2, and we're going to see how the pinning your opponent down or pinning your opponent back and that concept works in game number 2. So, of course, right now, the state of the game is that Soxry has raided Euthermal's third base, done a lot of damage. And if we take a look at the workers killed, this is a pretty rough number for anybody, for any race. If this was Zerg, 41 dead might be game. For Euthermal, he believes that there's still hope. That he has a destiny to win. And we can all kind of see from an objective standpoint that that's simply not probably going to happen. And we know that in the end, thunder outside. We know that in the end, he does lose, but he does play it out. And I really like that. I think that that's awesome because it definitely does look bad. And, you know, Euthermal is not an idiot. These 4 Zerglings run into the base to try to, scout out. He finds that nothing has changed. There are 2 more barracks here, there are 5 more barracks. Wow, I'm so silly. Really things are still pretty bad production-wise for Euthermal. He doesn't have the money to produce from all of these at the same time, and he doesn't know it, but what he needs to focus on right now is more and more Marauders. That's exactly what he needs, and he's not going to be able to get it. I mean, there's even a raid from more Mutalisks here. 3-3 is on the way for Euthermal. I don't believe that this is going to matter. And there's a Slack notification that just went off. Quit it, so we don't have to deal with that. But anyhow, what we see is that these Mutalisks are just so powerful at this point. They're on +2 attack, so they are definitely pretty dangerous. This is a flyer carapace. Really what's going on is that our Zergy friend here has 2/2, and he has +3 attack on the way. He's going to clean up this game here by attacking the third base, forcing the liftoff, and he's going to crush Euthermal's army. He has a bunch of Thors here, but there are just too many Mutalisks, too many Banelings that actually end up doing a lot of damage to these Thors by suiciding into them. Obviously, they're Banelings. But Soxry's going to first pick off the Medivacs, which will be important if there's another engagement. But then here in a second, when this reinforcement wave comes in, he's going to dive right back in, letting the Banelings lead. And Euthermal tries to actually cut out and clear up these creep tumors, which are literally right in front of his base. The fastest reinforcements. I think this even trumps Protoss for their Warpins at this point. But he's going to get this final engagement here, cornering Euthermal, literally in this area right here. Kills the Thor. About to magic box this, but doesn't get a chance as Euthermal GG's out. We can also see that Zombie Grub and Take TV in general, which includes Todd, they all casted, and there were a couple other observers there. But yeah, so that's how game 1 wraps up. Really not a lot to say. Soxry had an early push that just set the tone for the rest of the game. Euthermal never gets map control back. His Hellions never exit his base, except as part of drops. And those drops are cleaned up by a very mobile force from Soxry. He doesn't have to bother with wasting the drones or the huge mineral investment of getting static defenses. He just has Zerglings, Banelings, and Mutalisk. And he ends up having 5 bases, but gets a 4th base at a decent time. But he has 3 bases that are saturated a little bit quicker than normal because he pinned his opponent back. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at game number 2. And I'm going to switch to this here because that looks more professional. And while I'm transitioning, does anyone have any questions quite yet? You don't have to. I know there's only 2 of you. And one of you even has like a buffering problem. So I think, thanks guys for coming out and watching tonight. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to speed this up here. And we're going to take a look at Expedition Lost, which has been in the map pool for a little bit now. It's not my favorite map. We can see that Euthermal starts the game with proxy racks and probably I actually can't remember if he bunker rushes or not. Oh no, he doesn't bunker rush. It's just a pure proxy racks. And we can see that this game goes on for a little bit of time. I'm not going to spoil it, but we can see that he's just here to try and do damage. And I want to point out that this is still a continuation of the pinning your opponent back concept. Of course, Soxry's doing this really cute thing where he makes Evo chambers to save his drones, right? And he just like delays Euthermal that much longer. Another Reaper is coming out. I feel as if this is really weak proxy racks because these Reapers, yeah, they arrive earlier and they attack earlier, but you can't get them out in any significant numbers. There's no chance of you winning the game outright. Instead, it's just a very light investment, and you actually lose control of your barracks production for a little bit. So I feel as if that's a little bit of a mistake on Euthermal's part. If he had built Marines instead, it might have done a little bit more damage, been more effective. But these Reapers are, of course, really good at macroing away from slowlings. And immediately Zergling Speed is coming out because he does have to fight these Reapers. But on 2 base, Zerg is just producing way too much. The only thing these Reapers are going to kill is Lings. Not enough drones are going to die. Which is what Euthermal actually needs. Yeah, this is a sucky investment for Soxry who wants to produce drones, but he has Reapers to worry about. It's safer to build Lings than drones for obvious reasons. Such as dying. But yeah, so the barracks lifts off and goes back, and he's going to lose production for like more than a minute. He's only halfway across the map and it's already been close to 45 seconds. And that's how this game mostly goes. Soxry, spoiler alert, is going to win this game too. He's going to take map control like the good Zergy is, with speed even. And we're at ×2 right now. These Reapers are actually going to do a little bit more damage, but Soxry is really good about saving his drones by morphing them into structures temporarily and then canceling those structures. You lose like 10 minerals here, 25 there, but it's not as much as, you know, losing a drone and losing the potential income of a drone. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is super, super loud thunder. And it makes me worried that I'm going to get disconnected any second now. So, map control. Pinning your opponent back. Euthermal is just now at the close to 9-minute mark, beginning to put SCVs on his natural. His Hellions move out. There's an extra Hellion more than normal, and he has a Viking out as well to kind of clear up any scouting overlords or overlords that are there to kind of predict drops. The Viking is one of my favorite things. I think it's so clever for Terrans to do it, which is to send out those Vikings to kill overlords. And it really opens up a lot of paths of attack in regards to drops. We can see that this Banshee is out there trying to do damage. Is probably going to actually force the cancel here. Or not. Wow. I didn't know that. So, Soxry does manage to secure his third. And Euthermal's in a little bit of rough shape. He tried an early cheese by proxy-raxing Reapers into his opponent's base. Then he sent out a Banshee, and it died without really doing much. It got a couple of drones. But this Viking is probably the only unit, or the only tactic that Euthermal has put out there that's been cost-effective for him, which is really important for Terrans. Terrans get a lot of benefit from being efficient with their forces, which is why they have really strong armies that get stronger for being controlled well. There are very few exceptions to that rule where, of course, we have these Mutalisks out here pinning the opponent back yet again. Euthermal's going to have a really rough time either keeping this third Zergling, either keeping this third or protecting all three of his bases at once on an economy that is objectively behind. Now, I've kind of gone past the 12-minute mark, but I want to ratchet it back a second, and I want to take an overview of this match at its 3 benchmark stages. So, we're going to go ahead and look back to the 6-minute mark. We're going to let it run just a little bit here. And we're going to look at the amount of SCVs versus the amount of drones and what their armies look like. This is a bit of a weird game, but those are, in my opinion, sometimes the best games to really take a benchmark, to take an objective view of what the game status is. So 6 minutes, we can look and we can see it's still even. There's a slight lead by Euthermal, who's about to probably drop a mule. If you look at his energy, yeah, he's probably going to drop a mule, or he's going to drop a scan, and he's been pretty aggressive with those Reapers so far, so it's probably going to be a mule. He wants to be able to get those minerals to catch up, to recover from that cheese. And the reason I use the term recover is because he didn't do enough damage. Reapers are good for a very short amount of time, and he kind of overstayed that welcome as of now. There's Zerglings out on the field, Zergling speed's on the way, and he hasn't done enough damage to justify his expenditure for Reapers, which are gas heavy, early unit, 25 gas. It's more than... it's as much as a Baneling in gas. In fact, it's as much as a Baneling, period. And Banelings need 1.5 tech, which means that they need to have a Baneling nest to be able to be built. And it's more than just spawning pool, which hatchery spawning pool will be considered level 1. And Euthermal's also not going to be able to produce out of this barracks for a while, which also hurts. So that's another reason why we use the term recover. So we're going to continue with this game, and I'm going to speed it up so that we can take a look at the 8-minute mark, and we can look at how this game develops from an even standpoint. Keep in mind that Soxry is also on 2 base, so we can actually see him catch up fully in the economy, and he's actually going to surpass Euthermal quite handily. And we're going to come up to the 8-minute mark, and we're going to see that Soxry is predictably in the lead. This is not an even economy. Euthermal hasn't been able to take his natural because these Lings have been out on the field, and in fact they are probably still pretty dangerous here, so we can actually see that, you know, Soxry is going to actually end up backing off because of the Viking and because there's a bunch of Hellions out here. But Euthermal, if he had gone out earlier, he wouldn't have had these Hellions, and Soxry would have just stayed in the natural, and Euthermal knew that. Again, pinning your opponent back. We're going to go ahead and speed along to the 12-minute mark. We're going to see, of course, the Vikings, you know, exploring everywhere. This Banshee's going to head out. He's going to end up hitting here and then dying at the 3rd. But as we get closer and closer to the 12-minute mark, we can see that Soxry gets more and more of a lead. And we can also see that Soxry is in control of the map the entire time. These Vikings, these Banshees, have to slip away. They have to get around Soxry's map control, which is primarily ground focused. There's not a lot of anti-air for Soxry, except for at his base. But Euthermal intentionally, is going to be exploiting that by going out there with the Banshee, with the Viking. I believe he also begins making drops later on. We're going to speed along here. Banshee just died again. Soxry still with map control, still with the great creep spread. He's going to end up probably taking most of the map again, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so finally Euthermal is coming out onto the map, and it's the 12-minute mark. We're actually going to pause and ratchet it back about 20 seconds so that we can take a look at the 12-minute benchmark. Euthermal's finally starting to catch up again, economy-wise, but Soxry's been sitting on a superior amount of drones, a superior amount of bases for much longer. And his tech is going to show that. He's actually starting to go Muta. If we look at the production menu, 5 more on the way, 2 already existing, and he's going to add more to that. And this is, again, adding to Soxry's ability to pin his opponent back. Soxry is always in control. If you haven't picked up on this theme here, Soxry is, as a Zerg player, doing what every Zerg player values, and that is controlling the flow of the game. If Zerg is not in control of how the game flows, or the tempo of the game is also how I've heard it termed, if Soxry is not in control, he loses, or he takes a lot of damage. And at any point that Euthermal seizes the tempo away from Soxry and forces Soxry to respond to him instead, and Euthermal actually takes the initiative back from Soxry, Euthermal gives damage out to Soxry, and Soxry suffers for it. You know, those drops are a way for Euthermal to try to control the tempo of the game, to pin his opponent back, to take control. This is so important. This is an important concept that, you know, every competitive sport, every person that looks at strategy, every person that, you know, like even UFC fighters or small children, or did I just compare UFC fighters to small children? Babies in UFC fighting rings understand that you need to control the initiative. That's how you win. Or it's one of the ways that you win. Some people just play defensively all game and then come out with a game-ending army. But in games like StarCraft, those situations are few and far between. So we see, and I'm going to have to speed up a bit because I know I'm getting to run out of time. It's going to be 10 soon, and this is going to be an hour-long show. So these mutas come out onto the field, and Soxry, again, pins his opponent back. These Marines are actually going to be very handy for defending against Mutalisks, obviously. So Soxry just, you know, maintains map control. I imagine he's actually scouting around for these Hellions, and there he finds them. He's actually going to be able to take a couple of these out. Marines there to save the day, of course. And Euthermal has a little bit more map control right now, right? He doesn't have the initiative. He still has to react to what Soxry is doing. But these Marines are protected by the Hellions against Zerglings and Banelings, and the Marines protect the Hellions against Mutalisks. So he gets to move out, and he gets to make attacks and thrusts like this. Unfortunately, it's not enough to take the initiative back. As we can see, there's this counterattack, and Euthermal is forced to come back because this third is so important to Euthermal. He needs this income, and he's going to lose a lot of it. These Zerglings are just absolutely cruel, murderous bastards, and they kill a whole bunch of defenseless workers. These Hellions going to actually clean them up. But if we take a look, we can see that 10 workers have been killed. So it's definitely very painful for Soxry, but only a couple of, or other way around, excuse me. So, as we can see, Soxry up in Euthermal's face. Euthermal finally has enough force to make Soxry react, but Soxry's going to pick and choose his battle here. He decides to engage him a little bit off creep, which is not ideal, but Euthermal going to lose a lot of his forces. In fact, all of them. His entire army is crushed. There's a singular medevac that escapes. And now all that's left to defend Euthermal is what he's just produced. This produced during the battle, or was left behind to defend against Mutalisk counterattacks. And we can speed this up and see the next engagement, because Euthermal's still out on the map. He's actually going to throw down these rocks to try to protect himself, but he's making a slight mistake here. You know, Soxry's going to continue to threaten these rocks, and he's going to be able to continue to threaten these rocks. And this isn't actually as great for Euthermal. Yeah, it allows Euthermal to control when the battle is going to happen, but Soxri still maintains the initiative. And we can see that because Soxri eventually says, screw this, I'm going to go around. And he does. And he threatens the third. And he has enough force here with the Mutalisks, with the split up Zerglings, because we can see this blob here, we can see this stream here, we can see, the Overlords are right up in Euthermal's face. Soxri has a lot of counterattack power. So he attacks here, he draws Euthermal's army over, right, to the third base, and then we see him rush into the main, which by chance happens to have a lot of Euthermal's army. They were sim-cityed in themselves, but the rest of the army is here, and Euthermal is split up, right? And there's still a lot of damage being done. If we look at the Workers' Loss tab, boom, Soxri's caught up. So yeah, it is now 9:56. I'm gonna go and blast through this. We can see that Soxri is going to continue to exploit how spread out Euthermal is. Euthermal is going to try to take the center of the map, but Soxri is going to end up forcing an engagement here, and these Banelings just roll over most of his army. These Mutalisks are untouched, and they're going to continue to counterattack. And the game's going to end here pretty soon. He's going to do a lot of damage with these Mutalisks, and this army of Zerglings and Banelings is going to crash over the main and end the game at the same time that these Mutalisks are doing game-ending damage to one of two mining bases. These production facilities are going to go down. Euthermal doesn't have the capital to replace it. It's going to tap out any second now. So any closing questions for me about the games that we've covered so far, the concept that we've covered so far? Is my sound okay? Do I look okay? GG. Anything, y'all? Sound good? Look good? How's the daily? Anyone there even? I double check. Yeah, it's still the same 2 viewers. Hi guys. Alrighty, well, thank y'all for coming out and watching me tonight. There will be another daily show tomorrow. I'm going to actually, before I go to bed tonight, make a post on Team Liquid advertising tomorrow's show. Now that I have some content on my YouTube, I can, ask people to check me out before they come in and watch. That's the idea. So definitely thank you for coming out to watch. Y'all have a great night. I hope to see you tomorrow. If not, no harm, no foul. I know both of you. You're both awesome people. Bye. Enjoy some tunes for like 5 minutes.